Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this very important webinar on a day that is historical for Lebanon, where we are able to, we're getting to gain all our land back, where we're able to reach hopefully every single inch of our land in Lebanon. But after a terrible year and a half, where we've been affected by heavy bombardment, multiple attacks, our agriculture community, our food safety community, our food security community are all affected and worried about the status of our lands, are affected and worried about what would happen with our food security, what would happen with our production, what would happen with the current situation. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Rami Boujoude. I'm the COO of Beritech. I'm here today to moderate this panel. And with us today, we have three speakers that I will introduce in a bit. But this session was organized by the Agrifood Knowledge and Innovation Community. That is a very active community that is starting and growing as part of the Lebanon Innovate project that's funded by the EU. And with us today is Dr. Rula Al-Amil, who is the coordinator of this knowledge and innovation community, which we call Agrifood KIC. And let me start by introducing Dr. Rula. Dr. Rula is okay. Dr. Rula is the focal point of our Agri-Food Knowledge and Innovation community. She is the head of plant breeding department at the Lebanese Agriculture Research Institute, LARI, at Tel Amara in Bekaa. She is also an author and co-authors of tens of publications in international journals. She contributes to the academic field by being a lecturer at the St. Joseph University, Faculty of Agriculture, and has played a significant role as a trainer and principal investigator for many European projects, including GIZ, UNDP, FAO, MedWells, Mountain Her, Fragility to Resilience, and more. Dr. Rula, ahla wa sahla. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for working on this very important topic. So I will leave the floor to you to maybe introduce us to what is an Agri-Food Knowledge and Innovation community and why this is important for us.
Thank you, Rami, for the nice introduction. I'm really sorry for not being able to put my camera on. It's an honor to welcome all of you to this important discussion. The Agri-Food Knowledge and Innovation Communities KICs was launched last year, combining key innovation players from academia, industry, government representative, and BSO, business support organization, with the mission of fostering innovation, collaboration and growth in Lebanon's agri-food sector. Despite the challenges we faced last year, our members have remained committed to advancing the sector, working together to create tangible impact. Today marks a significant milestone as we're launching today our first activity as Agri-Food KIC. So it's really a discussion that resonates across the sector, from tackling farmers, industrialists, researchers, and mainly as well consumers. The question of how heavy metals and explosives may be affecting our agricultural lands is one that requires evidence and science-based answers, and we are proud to bring together experts to shed light on this pressing issue. I think it's just the beginning with all of you. The Agri-Food KICs are committed to driving meaningful contribution to the sector. And this year, we're expecting many activities, from technical training and industry-focused seminars to open innovation challenges that bridge industrialists and researchers, and more panels addressing the most critical issues facing our agri-food system. And thank you, Rami, and thank you for the audience and the panelists, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rula. Now let us move to the heart of our discussion. As was highlighted by Dr. Rula, this is a very, very important topic that we're all interested to know about. This session will highlight the food safety, testing methodologies, and research-driven insights, with experts sharing their findings on contamination risks, the role of laboratories in agriculture monitoring, and the pathway for Lebanon's agriculture recovery. So let's dive deeper into this, and let us start first by getting to know our esteemed panelists. So I'm going to start with the ladies first. So I'm going to start with Dr. Rose Bshara. Dr. Rose is the founder of Darmes Social Enterprise that was established in 2019. She is a global food marketing, neuromarketing, and consumer behavior specialist with an executive MBA in neuromarketing. She has built an amazing business model around Darmes business with transparency, traceability, and a strong social and environmental mission, working on achieving excellence, and they have received with the Darmes brand 9 international awards and expanded into 19 countries, taking the olive oil of Lebanon all over the world. I'm going to move to Dr. Muhammad Abyad, who is a professor of food processing and packaging at the Department of Nutrition and Food Sciences at the American University of Beirut. He's a director of the Laboratory for Environment, Agriculture and Food, LEAF, at AUB. He's an adjunct faculty of the School of Packaging at the Michigan State University in the US, and he was a senior advisor to the Minister of Environment in Lebanon. He is also a committee member of multiple organizations like the National Committee for the Center of Public Health Laboratory, the Food Safety at the Ministry of Public Health. He's the chair of the Scientific Committee assessing gains at Beirut Seaport after the blast, and he's a member of several national committees for Lebanese standards like Libnor, Ministry of Industry, and others. Dr. Abyad has an education in engineering, an MBA, and a Master's of Science in engineering, and a PhD in process engineering. So his research is focused on sustainability of food waste mitigation in the agri-food sector and food waste recycling, packaging, innovation, and product development. He's been involved in multiple publications, more than 80 peer-reviewed publications, and he has more than 25 years of consulting for private companies in the MENA region. He's also worked with multiple international organizations like the EU, Prima, Horizon 2020, USAID, FAO, UNDP, and ESCWA. And last but not least, Dr. Salim Hayyar. Dr. Hayyar has an expertise as a national expert in quality control of pesticide formulation and residues in agricultural products. He is specialized in pesticide regulation, analysis, and risk assessment. He's currently the researcher at the Doctor's School of Science and Technology at the Lebanese University, and he's a professor at the Department of Plant Protection at the Faculty of Agriculture from the Lebanese universities. He's an agricultural engineer with a master's in soil science and a PhD in environmental fate and pollutants in soil. He's done his postdoc research in advanced analytical techniques for pesticide residues detection in food. He has been also the founder of the reference phytopharmacy in Kfarshima Laboratory for the Lebanese Ministry of Agriculture, and he was the former head of the reference phytopharmacy and pesticide residue laboratories, ensuring quality of pesticide formulations and residues. So thank you all for joining me today. And without further ado, I'm going to start with our questions, because I'm sure our audience is very much interested in hearing more about your opinions. So let me start by Dr. Rose. So Dr. Rose, as a producer from the South, as a person who has worked with many also farmers, how has this conflict impacted you and your operation? And what is the current situation from farmers and producers around you? What are their primary concerns among them regarding the soil health and potential contamination?
Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Indeed, Rami, the conflict had an immediate and profound impact on our operations. Actually, on October 8, 2023, we were in the middle of our olive harvest when war broke out. With the entire team, our partner farmers were all at high risk. The situation was very uncertain, and it made every step of our process very challenging. On top of this, in 2023, the nature dealt very bad with us. Our trees had like 10% of their usual yield. So unfortunately, at the end, we had to stop at just 20% of our target quantity because of the war. We processed everything. We managed to harvest with our usual standards, filtered, bottled, transported all to Beirut. In 2024, 2 days before the harvest, the war escalated big time, and we couldn't produce anything. So yes, the impact was horrible on the business and especially on the farmers. The farmers in our area live only from olives and olive oil. Currently, the situation is very uncertain, let's say, for us all, because we did go through nearly 10 weeks of intense conflict. So the safety of the people and the land is a major concern for us now. Farmers are not facing only the physical displacement, but also the financial hardships and the uncertainty about the health of their lands. Our primary concerns among us and them is the potential contamination of the land. So we are quite anxious to reassess the state of our environment. We need to understand what impact did this war have on the soil composition, on the air quality, on the water resources, and ultimately, at the end, on the health of our olive tree. The problem is that it's not an agricultural challenge today for us and the farmers, it's an existential one, because any lasting impact on our health, on our land health, will not only affect this season, but the long-term sustainability of our olive cultivation in the region. And this is a big thing.
Thank you so much, Rose. You're totally right. You know, it's livelihoods, it's safety, it's a lot of concern, a lot of impact that will affect all our producers. And on the other hand, people that want to consume those products are also concerned. So it's a cycle that needs to be identified. It's a process that we need to learn about, so that we also restore the trust in the people that are buying our products, and making sure that, you know, that cycle of production, consumption, and purchase happens as well. As soon as we are able to get into those lands and produce. I'm going to move to Dr. Salim Hayar. Dr. Hayar, can you tell us a bit more on how do contaminants enter the soil? How long does it typically take for a land to recover naturally after a conflict? And what crops are more vulnerable than others in this area where production is happening? You're on mute, Dr. Hayar. Can you unmute, Dr. Hayar?
Sorry again. So thank you so much for inviting me to this webinar. And let me tell you first that yes, when we receive the explosive, so the heavy metals or white phosphorus or whatever contaminants can enter by atmospheric area. And then we have two types of deposition on the soil. It's dry deposition or wet deposition. And then the elements or whatever the contaminants, heavy metals or white phosphorus or any organic contaminants enter the soil. We have to analyze, first of all, the situation of the soils. We cannot take it directly. Yes, you have contaminants, you have heavy metals, and directly we make scale and make so you have to analyze the situation. Okay, so we know that heavy metals have different speciation in the environment, and also the behavior of these elements, heavy metals or whatever contaminants, it depends on the type of quality of the soil. So our soil is calcareous, and we have to analyze, first of all, the situation. we don't know. It's well known that heavy metals are toxic for soils, for it's not the same depending on the type of the elements and the association of the elements. So first of all, let's do the analysis, taking samples from the soils, analyze the situation of the type of the soil, what are type of the soil we have, what organic matter we have in the soils, what kind of structure and texture of the soil. Then in order to analyze, when you have all these elements on the environment, on ecosystems, then you can interpret our results depending also on the analysis and the amount of these contaminants that you have in the soils. So it's a crucial role to have all these parameters intrinsic to the element or contaminants and extrinsic to the ecosystems before any rapid or quick judgment.
That's excellent to know.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Doctor.
what kind of crops are vulnerable or not? So now, when you analyze the situation, you have to determine in which level we have our contaminants and which depths of the soil on the first layer or maybe deep till 20 or 30 centimeter. And now we check about our plants. Which of the plants have the roots between the upper layer, 10 to 15 centimeter, like legumes, like leafy vegetables, any leafy vegetables, green vegetables. So if the amount of our contaminants is on the upper layer, it means the leafy vegetables are the most vulnerable and can uptake these heavy metals like cadmium, chrome, or whatever. Now, if the depths, our contaminants can penetrate and the depths of the soils 15, 30 centimeter, 40 centimeter, now we move to other crops of the plant. So all what I want to propose or to suggest, don't make directly judgment to the situation. You have to analyze the situation first. Have all the parameter, extrinsic parameter of the media, soil, organic matter, then interpret the analysis, what kind of dose or amount of contaminant we have, then make a good analysis of the situation. There is always crops that are less vulnerable, okay? Like, for example, and can be used as hyperaccumulator, okay? Like sunflower or whatever, okay? So, but what is the most vulnerable crops is the leafy vegetables, the green vegetables, but also it depends on the availability of the heavy metals that we have, depends on the pH of the soil, depends on the organic matter that we have, and you have to take all these parameters into consideration before any judgment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hayar. This is very important. I think for our audience that are looking into this, it's important for them to understand where do we stand, what are the steps that are, and not to jump into conclusions. So it's important that science will take its time, samples are being taken, and then this direction can be given to farmers to be able to, decide what crops or given the directions on what to be done in terms of accumulation or not to plant or what to plant and so on. And I think that would take time for us to be able to assess. So thank you for sharing that input as well. We're going to move to Dr. Abyad. Dr. Abyad, what type of contaminants have been found so far in Lebanese agriculture product post-conflict, if we go back to this current war or before, if you know, and how do heavy metals and explosive residue affect food safety in general?
First of all, thank you, Rami, for the invitation. Thank you for organizing such a very important webinar on the topic. And I think we can address a lot of confusion that most people have drawn conclusions that the main contaminant is the white phosphorus. Unfortunately, white phosphorus is not of concern, which is a good thing. White phosphorus decomposes right away, and it produces more stable forms. And you know that once that is laid on the soil, it does not really stay in one form. And you know, for plants to absorb the phosphorus, it has to be in available form. Not so there are two forms for that: available and unavailable. So the plants will just absorb the available forms. Unfortunately, no residues of phosphorus were found on crops that were picked up or brought from the south. We've tested a lot of olive oil samples, and fortunately, and olives as well. Unfortunately, they were all free of phosphorus. The biggest concern basically in that area is the contamination with heavy metals and explosives. And these include TNT, RDX. We have also done a study, fortunately, before the war and before the 2023 and 24 war. We did a study on the 2006 war back in 2021. And we got samples from soils from the south where areas were attacked, or we have residues where and locations of bombing from the 2006, and we still found high levels of heavy metals, especially barium, arsenic, lead, nickel, copper, cadmium. Barium is very dangerous. It's big. It's one of the most carcinogenic, and you can find it even in blood of blood samples taken from people living in the south and the Bekaa, and which live close to war zones, to the conflict. So that is one concern. The other one is explosive residues. We found TNT and RDX, which are two types of explosive. We found them in soil that date back to the 2006 war. So this is the biggest concern. This will end up, especially as Dr. Hayar said, that leafy vegetables are the most susceptible because they absorb more. Their life is short. Like you plant, the harvest is short. Between planting and harvesting is short. So they can absorb, and they are low to the ground. So they absorb, the roots are shallow. So they absorb more heavy metals, and that will affect the implication. That has a lot of implications on food safety, actually. This will end up in our food chain, if not ended up already. And long-term exposures to contaminated food can lead to chronic health issues and risk cancer, increases risk cancer for them. So this is highlighting what we have found from before. But again, I just want to say that phosphorus is not our concern. Heavy metals and explosives are more of danger for us and pose higher health risk on people consuming products from the south, if not if no remediation for the soil is being done in there. Now, fruity vegetables or fruits or tree crops are not much of concern in that area. More is the leafy and crops that grow close to the ground and absorb more nutrients from the ground than trees.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abyad. This is important to know. As you mentioned, there was a lot of discussion around the white phosphorus concerns, but it's important that you shed the light on the concerns about heavy metals, that many of unfortunately the heavy metals or the residues of the war of 2016 are still in our soil in many places, and that leafy vegetables are a big concern for the consumers because they will absorb a lot of that. So thank you for sharing this. If I go back to Dr. Salem, Dr. Salem, we know that we understood that there is a way to test from you. We understood from Dr. Abiad also that there are still a lot of those heavy metals that are available, and it's a concern. What is the impact of heavy metals on soil health and crop productivity? And are there specific crops that are more vulnerable? Dr. Abiad highlighted a bit that trees and fruit trees, olive trees are usually less of a concern, more leafy vegetables. But is there what would be the impact on soil health and crop productivity when it comes to heavy metals?
Good. So let's take into account first the element of heavy metals. What kind of element I have, what kind of speciation of element I have. You know that cadmium, chrome, or whatever can be present in different speciation. There is big difference between chrome 6 plus and chrome 3 plus, hexavalent, and the toxicity differ largely between this speciation of elements. So, as always, I suggest for scientists, you have to analyze the situation, taking into account the parameter of the elements, of the heavy metals, the solubility, the constant of adsorption, desorption, and so on. And also, what we forget, general, is the ecosystem parameters, is the extrinsic. What kind of soil we have, what kind of organic matter we have, what kind of pH you have, what kind of texture and structure we have. So all these parameters affect the availability of heavy metals. So whatever the element, we have to take into account the soil. So we have to analyze also the soil, not only the amount of contaminants in the soil. In order to understand and to predict the behavior of the element and the availability of the element. When you have all these parameters of extrinsic on the ecosystems, also we have to take into account the microbial activity of the soil. Okay, not only organic matter, but you have here life in the soil. You have microorganisms that play a big role in the stabilization of heavy metals between availability and non-availability. So and the organic matters, I can make sequestration of this heavy metals and avoid a quick uptake by the plants. So we have to take into account again all these parameters before judge if these heavy metals or this amount of heavy metals and what kind of dose we have in these soils before judge its toxicity on the ecosystems.
Excellent.
Now,
Yeah, go ahead.
now taking into account the dose or the amount of heavy metals, certainly there is a lot of regulation by FAO or EPA limiting the amount of heavy metals in the soil and its toxicity first to microbial flora, to health plant, and so on. And certainly, these heavy metals, once exceeding some elements, some dose, okay, they affect the microflora activity, the structure of the soils, and also the uptake of the plants by of these heavy metals. That is the essential.
So I'm expecting, at least I think the audience that we have is expecting a full protocol of assessment that would take us through the whole, as you mentioned, the intrinsic and extrinsic activities, whether it's the soil, the organic matter, the life in the soil, whether it's bacterial and all the other elements that are there, along with the crops that are being produced. And all of this will give us a direction to the community that's out there on how to behave or react or adapt to the current situation. Thank you so much, Dr. Hayar. I'll move to Dr. Rose Bshara. Rose, you conducted tests back in September 2024, as you mentioned. Noting that the South has been affected since last year, what were the outcomes of those tests that you've done, and what is the action plan moving forward after the liberation of the land? Where do you think your next steps will be as leading on a community of people that live from these crops, and what is the next step?
Yes, indeed, we did conduct tests, but what I would like to highlight is that these tests were done in my village, Dermimes, from where my olive oil comes. So we did a random test, taking soil from everywhere, mixing it as a soil to test, versus what we call a pilot soil, which comes from a place that was not worked, where there are no olive trees, as we say in Arabic, ba'al. Now, I would like to highlight the fact that Dermimes was not bombed technically when we did this analysis in September 2024. The periphery was bombed. So we conducted the tests at Dr. Abyad at Leaf, and the recommendation was to focus on analyzing heavy metals and total phosphorus levels in the soils. In the soil. The results indicated that all measurements fell within the normal historical range for southern Lebanon, which was consistent with data dating back to 1977. So at that time, we were very reassured that our land was healthy, uncompromised. However, after this, we all know that we had like 10 weeks of intense war. I also say that my village was somehow spared, but this is not the case of the South. And still in Dermimes, we have very serious concerns about the current state of our soil, of the water, of the air, and of the trees. Actually, we believe the whole balance of the ecosystem is alterated. So our priority now with the farmers is to understand the full impact of the conflict and take every necessary step to protect the integrity of our groves. It's our farmers, as you said, livelihoods, and the future of high quality olive oil production in southern Lebanon. So our plan is like we could summarize it under three main points. One, we would like to reassess again the environmental impact. So we need this time a new round of testing, but a different kind of testing, more comprehensive, covering not only the soil. I believe, I'm not technical, but that's how I see it, the water, the air quality. We need to know if there is any potential contamination that could have a long-term effect on our land. Second, to do this, we believe we have to collaborate with experts, like the experts we have today, environmental scientists, agricultural specialists, who could help us analyze the findings and develop, hopefully, mitigation strategies. And of course, we need to provide support for our farmers, provide guidance, resources, and potential recovery programs to help them regain stability.
Thank you so much, Rose. You're totally right. The support for our community of farmers and producers is super important, giving them clear direction on how to move forward. Thank you for sharing the efforts that you've done also in terms of testing before the 10 months of action. And I'm sure that there will be more to be done. We're all hopeful that some clear directions on how to support that community will be done as we move forward. Dr. Muhammad, what type of testings are available to detect heavy metals and explosive residues in agricultural crops? Is this a common test, common protocols that are out there? And can you walk us through the methodologies used and the reliability of these tests in assessing contamination levels?
Okay, I just want to highlight our work with Rose on testing the soils and actually being able to reassure that before the war, the soil was healthy. I also want to highlight one thing before I mention the methodologies that we have and what we do at LEAF. We are currently collaborating with LRI, the Lebanese Reforestation Initiative, the Lebanese Army, as well as the NCC, Nature Conservation Center at AUB. And we are trying to work with farmers, local farmers, and we have collected so far 250 samples, soils and leaves from fruit trees. And we are currently trying to secure funds to help those farmers. We're expecting about 350 more samples from soils. So our samples are divided between urban areas where people will be living and including water resources from these areas, especially spring water. And also we are still waiting also for farmers to provide us for sample soils or soil samples from agricultural land. So we have a combination from urban and agricultural areas where we are trying to secure the funding to test all 500 samples, including water, from the south, to assure people or to assure the farmers and people that are returning if the return is safe or not. Now, I want to highlight one thing, as Rose said, it's not only the soil that we need to be looking into. We need to look into the water, but the groundwater is not yet contaminated. It will take some time for the groundwater to be contaminated. Fortunately, we don't have much surface water in the areas in the south, and where it would cause the contamination would cause a disastrous effects, especially if we have fish farms, and which luckily we don't have there. The most of the fish farms are in the Bika, so that's a relief from that sense. Now, for us, we have definitely we have methodologies for testing. We use first of all for heavy metals, we use ICP, inductively coupled plasma mass spec, and with that, the reliability is it's highly reliable, capable of finding traces in ppb, even parts per billion, not only parts per million of heavy metals. We can scan for a lot. Our lab is getting ISO certification on ICP, hopefully within the next few months. We've also done, in collaboration with the Lebanese army, we developed the methodology to test for explosives in soil. And we do that through two methodologies. We do that through either gas chromatography mass spec, GCMS, or liquid chromatography mass spec, LCMS. And the reliability of GCMS is its and sensitivity in detecting explosive like TNT, RDX. It's a standard in forensic environmental analyses, and our method is in line with international standards. And we are working also with the OPCW, which is the Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons in The Hague. And we are the only lab in the Middle East that collaborates with OPCW. And I thank my team for being able to develop the methods and work with them on chemical toxins and stuff like that. Also, LCMS provides high sensitivity and precision, particularly looking at other explosives that we cannot see in using the GCMS. So ICP, MS, GCMS, LCMS are highly sensitive for detecting heavy metals and explosives, and this is the methods. These are the methods that we adopt and we work and follow in our lab at LEAF. So we're ready to collaborate with you, with farmers, with everybody, and we put our expertise under the service for this country, and we've done so far, and we will continue doing that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abyad. I'm very happy to see that we have a lot of interaction on our chat and some questions in the Q&A. We'll be reviewing those comments as we move into the Q&A section at the end. So please, for all our audience who are interested to know more, to have questions and comments, feel free to continue with your comments. We are capturing them, we're making the essence of them, and then we're going to have questions for our esteemed speakers to get their input on the matter. Moving to our third section of our Q&A, we want to make sure that we raise awareness and look at solutions going into that new phase of Lebanon. So starting with you, Dr. Hayar, how can research-driven solutions help mitigate the impact of contamination and support safer agricultural practices?
Well, so researchers have to conduct analysis. First of all, to have a direct idea of the situation, what kind of heavy metals or contaminants or I have in my soil. So, but first of all, as Dr. Abiyat said, we have to standardize our method, to have the equipment, and to be sure of our protocol of analysis, to be sure also first of all of our sampling method, to have a sample which from part of the soil that I have to take, and then be sure also of the protocol of my instrument, and as Dr. Abiyat said, to have the certificate or ISO regarding our protocol or method of analysis. When I am sure of this parts, essential parts, now I can have analyze and have an idea about the level of contamination if there, and then to study what kind of speciation of elements I have also in the element, okay, and its effect on soil microflora, to see what kind of microorganisms I have, if the microorganism of the soil was affected or no, what kind of pH I have, what kind of researcher will have to also to make some tests to see what kind of availability of these heavy metals I have in my soil. So it's not only I have the total amount of the heavy metals, I have to check about pH, chemical, quality of organic matter, and then to analyze the availability of these heavy metals to my roots plants. Okay, so all of this researchers have to take into account, and then to associate this kind of analysis or results with the farmer in order to educate him what kind of rotation crop he have to apply in his field, because crop rotation also play a big role on the availability of these heavy metals if there is heavy metals, and also monitoring of this amount of or level of contaminants in the soil. When I have all this also collaboration with the farmer, I can adopt some rotation crops. As we said in the beginning, there is some crops less vulnerable, can participate on the uptake of this heavy metals or contaminants, and also some microflora. I can add some, activate some the microflora in the soils, and adding, for example, compost, adding biochar to stabilize this kind of elements. If there is, as I also said, because participating with the farmer, with the producer is essential, associating with the research activity. Okay, so a researcher must play a role on the monitoring of these results during the crop cycle.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hayar. If we move now to Dr. Rose, can you tell us a bit more about the role that industrialists and food producers can play in raising awareness and advocating for stricter safety regulations? Because I think that's an important component when it comes to exporting, when it comes to accessing food safety for the users. Can you take us more through the role of industrialists and food producers in playing in raising such awareness and advocating for stricter safety regulations?
Yeah, but Rami, here I tend to say that it's maybe industrialists could be part of the be a stakeholder, but I tend also to say that the Ministry of Agriculture should play a major role here, because technically, even I was exporting, I'm not even listed as an industrialist. However, I'm part of the Ministry of Agriculture because the production of olive oil, you do not change anything. It's a totally mechanical process, so it's considered pure agriculture. However, if we would like to involve, be it the industrialists or the Ministry of Agriculture, I believe hand in hand with them as food producers, we can advocate for stricter food safety regulations, especially in these environmentally challenged regions that were affected by the conflict, in the sense that they should help us promote research, environmental testing, sharing results, collaborating with scientific institutions, promoting transparency, which, as far as olive oil is concerned, is not available. It's out of anyone's scope of thinking. We should together also engage with policymakers to push for improved regulations, especially for export. We should work together to educate consumers, to raise awareness through marketing certifications. And that's exactly what the doctors said before. People, for example, are very, very now concerned about white phosphorus, but probably, this is not what we should be looking for. So the propaganda is not helping us so far. We should put a scientific framework and for everything that's going on and that we will need in order to promote products from the South. We need also their help to sustain our farmers and promote resilience in agriculture. And I believe we should partner with some serious global organization to attract support. Yani, in a nutshell, we have to bridge the gap to drive a meaningful change for a safer and sustainable food system. That's how I see it.
Very well said, Dr. Bishara. This is, and I think you mentioned a lot of stakeholders that need to be engaged, the ministry and the rest, and that's important for the sector as a whole. Dr. Abyad, what role can research institutions and laboratories play in raising awareness and advocating for stricter food safety regulations, particularly in post-conflict recovery?
Okay, so research institutions, especially labs like ours, are really crucial in raising awareness, especially post-conflict and in areas that are affected. We have been involved in a lot of contributions on this since the beginning of the war, and we continue to do that. We have initiated several research projects that target testing these areas and getting samples from those areas. We have worked on developing and validating our testing methods, and that's what research institutes should do. And we've also created public awareness around the results that we got and a lot of things. And we have worked with the Ministry of Environment in the beginning of the war, and we have raised concerns about the use of phosphorus because we wanted to make sure that the claims of using phosphorus were sound and true, and that's what we did. We were able to get samples early in 2023. And then also we've been working, creating awareness, especially after the use of phosphorus with the Lebanese Army, the engineering brigade. We've developed also with the Ministry of Public Health pamphlets to distribute regarding the direct effects and what precautions people can take if they were exposed to phosphorus, and also post that what they can do. We've done a lot of, we're doing actually a lot of capacity building, training, and creating collaboration networks. We have worked with the LRI, the Lebanese Reforestation Institute initiative. We've worked with the Lebanese Army through the Civil Military Cooperation Directorate, which is CIMIC, if you've heard about that, about them. We've also worked with the Engineering Brigade and the Military Police on all those. We've been testing, we've been working with farmers getting samples, giving them guidance through LRI and NCC, Nature Conservation Center at AUB. Also, we've been doing that, and what we will be doing in the coming year or so is monitoring and doing long-term studies. Groundwater, eventually, if we have high residues, we have high contamination at the surface with rain, with snow, this will end up in our reservoirs. But this is a long-term monitoring process. So we will continue working on that. I saw one question also in the chat regarding this. So this is one of the answers that we can give for that. We're also doing a baseline, trying to see if some areas we can get from the Ministry of Agriculture some baseline data on the soil, like what we did with Rose. She did before the conflict, and now she wants to do post conflict in her area. So she has a baseline, but we don't know if there is CNRS said or mentioned that they do have a baseline for the type of soils, the contamination levels, and heavy metal levels on that. So that's something that laboratories, research teams, and academicians can contribute to. So creating this all collaboration among all the stakeholders is essential in order to address this challenge that is coming our way.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Abiad. Now, our last set of questions, it's the same question for all our panelists, and it's somehow an open-ended one to get your input as our final round of questions before we open it to all those exciting questions that we've received. So my question to all of you is the following. What type of support do you believe is essential from your respective fields, whether as a producer, researcher, or a laboratory expert, to effectively address the impact of conflict on agriculture? How can different stakeholders collaborate to ensure food safety and agricultural recovery? I believe Rose touched on this question initially in her response, but I think we can elaborate on this more. What is important also in this context is that this call or this webinar was organized by the Agri-Food Knowledge and Innovation community, which is keen on playing an active role in pushing forward innovation, research, and making sure that we play an active role for Lebanon. So I let this question to you, whoever wants to start with giving an answer, and then we can rotate.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said, Rami. To summarize it, I believe to address the impact of conflict, there should be a collaboration between producers, researchers, and laboratory experts. Us as producers, I'm talking about people who have a brand like me and the farmers. I believe we should monitor environmental conditions, and from now on, everyone is responsible, especially in the South, to adopt sustainable farming practices. I believe everyone should stop anything that has to do with chemicals and pesticides. One, the researchers must assess contamination risks, develop land restoration solutions, hopefully, and share with us data as a guide to recover. And for the laboratory experts, I mean, we need to expand with them testing, stricter safety standards, food traceability, stuff like this. And this collaboration could help us do what could be done in 1 year very quickly.
Thank you so much, Rose. Who wants to join in? Dr. Salem, Dr. Muhammad.
Okay, so I add to Dr. Shara that yes, some collaboration must be there with a researcher, especially with farmers and producer, and the scientist, expert analyst in laboratory. A continuous monitoring of the ecosystem's state regarding these contaminants is essential also. But what I want to add also is, like Minister of Agriculture, invite farmers to be registered. There is a registration record and Ministry of Agriculture. What I want to is make this announcement really in heart that to tell those farmers, go and make registration within this record of registration in order to follow up what kind of agriculture practices they are doing, what kind of crop rotation they are doing, and to assess the analysis of laboratory and to record it within the years and to have this following data and use this data also in our concrete solution. So with registration, recording, all testing analysis on soils and crops and crop rotation, we can have all this data in order to predict or if there any problem in the future, have a good solution of that. Now, certainly, the analysis of the situation must be multidisciplinary effort. Agriculture there, soil scientist, chemist, and analysis of laboratory must cooperate together in order to have understanding the situation, not only by having the results only, and to make raising awareness of farmers. Please do not panic, do not scare. As my colleagues, Dr. Abiad said, white phosphorus is not dangerous for especially our soils, our typical soils regarding our organic matter, microbial activity, pH, and whatever, and texture and structure. So please raise awareness, do not scare, do not panic. Make analysis. By this analysis, use results in order. Believe me, I receive many calls from farmers asking about the quality of their olive oils. And I want to tell them, please do not panic. There is no white phosphorus in our olive oil. That will impossible to go there under our olive oil. So this kind of awareness really that's what I like to raise together with this all collaboration.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hayar. Dr. Abiad? We can't see
You are muted.
You are on
So
mute,
I just
Dr.
want
Abiad.
to add a quick that collaboration is a must in order to address this challenge. I think this needs to be done through PPP, public-private partnerships with academia involved. A lot of researchers are working on the topic now. It's a hot topic. There is a need from all parties to come together and try to make use of the information and in order to collect this data. It's not a one person or one lab or one or two people cannot do it alone. It should be a holistic collaboration between the farmers, between the government agencies, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Agriculture, as well as the private partners, NGOs, farmers from all over. They should all come together and help us in getting the data in trying to collect this data through providing us with samples, because we can't visit all the lands. If somebody has lands, they can bring us samples. We are open for that. Other institutions should be also open for that. We need to collect this data, analyze it, and proper analysis will give us or will show us what the real problem is and how I can solve it. Now, again, as Dr. Hayar said, white phosphorus does not stay as white phosphorus. White phosphorus is highly reactive. It will react with oxygen right away. There are no dust, nothing that is left there.
Exactly.
It's not the problem. And this is one of the main awareness campaigns that should be made. Our biggest concern, again, is heavy metals, and the contamination from these heavy metals and explosives that remain in the soil for years and years because they do not decompose. They're not just organic matter that will decompose and go away. They are stable enough to stay and contaminate our food chain and food supply. So again, collaboration, governmental agencies, non-government NGOs, non-governmental agencies, universities, academicians, farmers, Veritech, and other supporters, international players that can support and finance research. And these collaborations are highly needed at this time in specific in order to move forward with our agriculture and our production as a whole.
Rami, I see it at the level of the whole South, um, piloted by an important entity that gets funds, puts a roadmap for everyone. It cannot be
100%.
done fragmented.
100%. As Dr. Abiad mentioned, it should be a PPP activity with a clear scope, and because trust needs to be built, and trust will only happen if we have the scientific community, the public sector that is supporting this, and the community of people that will use this data and results and practices to make the best out of the living of the communities that are out there.
I'm hearing some NGOs, European NGOs, are bringing funds for farmers because they believe farmers will not be able, who are in agriculture, to sell their produce for the coming 5 or 7 years. This is not what we want. A farmer is not happy if he's not a farmer.
True, 100%. That's why the scientific community is there. That's why this webinar is put, to make sure that we get things clearer and more aware. And we're hoping that out of this webinar, we'll be able to come up with some recommendations that will be shared to the general public as well. I'm going to go through some of the Q&A questions that we have to be able to get some answers to our audience. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Abiad. We've had few questions related to the standards that are. So one question was from Hiba Abdullah. What standard did you use when assessing explosives? Is it available to purchase? How do you assess control if standard is not available?
Okay, for explosives, it's a collaboration with the Lebanese army. We have military standards and they are not available for sale.
Okay.
Short answer.
Good to know. Another question for you from Muhammad Dakduki. It's interesting to know that Leaf are acquiring ISO and ICP-MS. Is it a certification for all matrices or specific ones?
For the heavy metals, it's all profile of the whole heavy metals.
Okay, and the other question as well is that if some of the researchers are having research academic-based projects, does LEAF provide discounted prices for other academic institutions?
Yes, we have a lot of collaborations with other universities, the Lebanese University, Lebanese American University, Beirut Arab University, and USG as well, and UZEC. And we do offer discounted prices for universities and collaboration. And if you have any questions, you can email us. Email me personally at ma192@aub.edu.lb or another email, leaf@aub.edu.lb. And I'll put those in the chat.
Okay, great. We have a couple of questions for Dr. Hayar and Dr. Abiad. The first set is from Omar Basiri. So the concern that Omar has is related to the byproducts of or biotransforms of the phosphorus. The primary concern is related to algal bloom, which may catch us off guard at the level of water pumping from wells to field. As this may clog up the equipment and render farming non-feasible as the pipes are deep and maintenance rectification will be expensive. So the first one is related to the impact of phosphorus and the algae bloom. The second one is also related to the introduction of biological life as a nationwide measure to break down or neutralize heavy metals. It is considered a big thing. What are we ready for this? And would you prefer we just plant things to absorb heavy metals, take them out, and pay some other nation to take them off our hands like developed countries do with garbage? You're on mute, Dr. Abiad.
For the first question regarding algal bloom, that's not a concern in wells, and it's never been a concern in underground water. It's algal bloom is the concern in surface water. And I said in my comments earlier that we are lucky we don't have fish farms and lakes in the south, which could be contaminated with phosphorus and lead to algal bloom and the death of or loss of the fish life in that area. So that is not a concern for underground. Anyways, phosphorus will not reach the underground as is. It's going to decompose and it will change into different forms. And that's basically just a quick answer to your concern. I don't think there's any concern with that.
Okay. And Dr. Hayar, maybe you can answer the other question is related to the use of organic, not organic. 1 second here. It's the use of biological life as a nationwide measure to breaking down or neutralize heavy metals. The quest here is it something that is feasible and doable, and if not, should we plant plants that would absorb some of those and then dispose them through a process in other countries to get rid of those heavy metals through proper procedures?
If I may, excuse me, I will have to go. Thank you
Okay.
so much again.
Dr. Abiad, thank you so much.
And thank you. And I look forward to hearing from many of you. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. You've got my email address in the chat, and just feel free to do that. And thanks again, Rami, for this wonderful seminar. Thank you, Salim, for being here, and for Rose as well. Thank you so much for organizing this. And excuse me, I had to leave for another engagement.
Merci, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
So coming back to your question, Rami, before any solution, describe any solution, you have to have an idea about the amount or the level of contamination that we have in our soils. Okay, so make analysis, determine the level of contamination if there, and if this amount of contaminants, heavy metals, and our soil exceeding limits, now it depends on the results. And then we make the solution. We describe the solution. Okay, so we know that some elements in the soil there is some organic matter. And this organic matter play a big role with the texture, with this particle of the soils, what you call this cation exchange capacity. And it depends on the level of this amount of contaminants, especially heavy metals. So what I have an idea about the situation and predict this. I don't think that we have a big amount of contamination of heavy metals. We don't need to panic. We don't need to be scared. All what we need is there is some natural attenuation and the environment and the ecosystems. Roots is there. They make exudate roots. There are some beneficial microorganisms there that can stabilize our if there heavy metals, and which depths of the soils that can immobilize it and avoid it to penetrate to the groundwater. Was part of one. Education to the farmer regarding also the level of contamination. I said, right, you have to look to the level of contamination if there, and then educate the farmer what kind of crop rotation they have to proceed, what kind of amendment, organic amendment to proceed, because you know that some organic matter have some heavy metals have some affinity to organic matter, and it depends on the quality of organic matter, depending on humic acid, fulvic acid, and what other. So no need to make excavation and be extremist and this judgment. Okay, there is always natural attenuation of if there and the environment and the ecosystems. Yes, so our microflora is there. It can make some organic acids, some molecule organic to stabilize some heavy metals in the soils. Also, by crop rotation, you can educate, as I said, the farmer to use some crops that can uptake, like sunflower or whatever, with this crop rotation, okay? And by the monitoring of this level of contamination, if there again, okay, we can also proceed by raising awareness to the farmer and to have a solution for that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hayar. Rose, we've got a question from Wael Yamin. Can you clarify on how did you check the quality of the product, and what was there any concern from your consumers and buyers about the olive oil of this year and the past years? Now that the war, 2023, the production of 2024 was affected, at least the consumers that were buying your oil. So were they worried about it? How were you able to share the
Actually, in 2023, when we were harvesting and the war started on October 8th, we stopped harvesting on October 10th or 11th, and there was absolutely no bombing yet in our area. It was very far, Mazarea, Shiba, and stuff like this. So in 2023, there was no need to do anything. And we are in the process of getting an organic certification for all farmers. So we only work organic. In 2024, unfortunately, Wael, everything was ready. 2 days before the harvest, the war escalated. We couldn't reach, we didn't harvest, so the product is not available anywhere, not even for me to eat. And moreover, we did move all of our material and equipment to a safer area in southern Lebanon, and we were bombed there. So technically, we lost all of our equipments and machinery. Now, the clients are asking for the product. Yes. Our distributors want the product. Yes. But I believe this yes is coming from the fact that they know we are very transparent and very responsible. Knowing that if the product is not clean, we're not going to harvest and sell. I believe the trust is there. And before selling, I'm the one who is consuming the product. So I want to know for myself before anything else.
Great. Thank you so much, Rose. This is important to know, and it's so sad to know that the harvest of 2024 was not something that you were able to salvage for the farmers, for you, and everybody who looks forward to having their mess products in their homes and consume it.
Thank you, everyone.
One more. We're trying to get a couple more questions before the end of this session. I'm trying to find some. It's very interesting. We've got a lot of interactions from the audience, so this is great to see.
Everyone is concerned. Even the ones who do the oil for themselves, 2 tins to eat all year long, they are very concerned.
For sure. Okay. We've had one question here regarding one second. Dr. Hayar, we have a question also from Wael that talks about the underground water and its effects. Is the effect on underground water once the contaminants reach to the underground water reversible? Because we've talked a lot about, trying to work the topsoil with different solutions, but if it reaches the groundwater, is it something that is reversible? And if there's any background checks about the original amounts of these pollutants and heavy metals of these compounds in the soil before the war? So do we have a database before the war about all those soils and the level of contamination?
Unfortunately, I don't have any database of the analysis that have done in the past. Maybe Dr. Abiad will inform us what if they are doing some analysis on the groundwater. But I have to tell them again and to reassure the farmer or the producer or the consumer. You have to analyze always the situation. What type of soils, what type of depths of soil we have, what type of structure we have, what type of texture you have. Up in my experience, when you have depths of soils, heavy metals will not go directly to the groundwater. There are some absorption by organic matter, by the texture, okay, by clay and whatever. Also, when the farmer within his agriculture practices add some organic matter, this organic matter have some affinity to have some elements, and also there is uh, retention of these heavy metals and reducing its leaching to the groundwater. It depends also on the amount that we receive from these contaminants on the upper layer before, and then make prediction and analyze all these parameters to see if these heavy metals go underground or not.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay. There was a question about biomagnification resulting from long-term accumulation of heavy metals in our bodies, and as a consumption of different food varieties, a main focus should be dedicated to risk assessment studies. Do we have some answers on this in terms of biomagnification? I believe that's when we eat crops and then that goes into accumulation of heavy metals from one organism to the other. Do you have some answers about that, Dr. Hayar?
Look, now we are going out of our goals. When you talk about biomagnification, it comes from foods, from tuna, from fish that you have, from the imported food and whatever. So if you want to talk about biomagnification, we need all metadata of analysis of heavy metals residues in all our dietary foods. You have to analyze what kind of food you are taking, what kind of consumption you are taking, and whatever, and then analyze the residues of these heavy metals and our all food. But again, I don't know if you have all this data, okay? But again, also, I don't want to. I always like to reassure the consumer. Okay, do not panic. Do not scare. Okay. Yes, so you have to analyze all these kind of foods of our consumption. So avoid to eat tuna, for example, coming from sources, contaminated sources or whatever. Okay, now awareness is still on the net, on the social media, and there are listing what kind of food are more contaminated by heavy metals than the others, and you have to analyze all this in our mind and to determine our rate of consumption of this kind of foods from safe sources.
Great. Thank you so much. I believe we've covered most of the questions that we've received, or at least worked around them. I want to take the time to thank our panelists, Dr. Salim Hayar, Dr. Rose Bshara, Dr. Muhammad Abyad, for giving us this insightful information, the knowledge that you all shared with us today, with the audience that we have. It is reassuring to know that we have labs, scientists, and business owners and producers that are keen to make sure that we go through that next level, next step in our country, that are keen on making a difference. And we hope that this will be a start of a peace period for resilience and growth for Lebanon. I want to take the opportunity to thank the Lebanon Knowledge and Innovation Community for Agrifood for initiating this process as their first activity because they care, and look forward to give you more insights about it. They will be live online for the Lebanon Innovate team for supporting this initiative and for the EU for funding this activity. I take the last chance to say thank you for our audience who were there, very curious and interested to know more. So with that, I wish you all a very pleasant evening, and hopefully together we'll make Lebanon better. Thank you very much.